Hello everyone, John Martinez back again, 21-day REI Sales Challenge, and I want to talk to you today about another way to build rapport. There's really lots of ways to build rapport. Some of us know the most common ways, but there might be a way or two that you're not very familiar with. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. Before we get going, I want you to think about something, okay? I want you to think about those deals that you've had that kind of stalled out or that didn't really go anywhere. And I want you to think about why that happened. Do you have any idea? Those prospects who you thought you had an opportunity with that just never called you back, never emailed you back, you lost it. Do you have any idea why? I know we all have guesses, but do you know? Do you absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, know? Well, if your answer to that is no, then wouldn't you like to find out? Because if you knew, there's maybe a few things you could have done to actually save the deal. Maybe your prospect, maybe the home seller, maybe they were worried about something that really they had no need to worry about, right? Maybe they just misunderstood something you said, and that's what killed the deal. Maybe they loved everything, and they were just a little bit scared to take that action and just needed that little bit of reassurance from you. You know what I mean? The bottom line is this. If you knew exactly what was going on, would that have made a difference? You know what? I would bet it would make a difference. Because sales is really about communication. I want you to think about it this way. If you could mind read, wouldn't sales be super easy? I mean, if you knew exactly what your prospect wanted, if you knew exactly what they were afraid of, if you knew exactly, if you knew every single thing that could possibly stand in the way of them taking action, wouldn't that be cool? Of course, that'd be awesome if we knew all that stuff. Sales would be super freaking easy. But the deal is we can't read minds. So instead of that, we have to communicate extremely effectively in order to really get as close as we can to mind reading, right? So there's a half dozen strategies or so that make that kind of possible, but there's one of them that's really simple and really effective, and that's active listening. More specifically, I'm talking about empathetic statements. So I'm gonna do a little game here. 3 things. I want you to tell me what these 3 things have in common, because we're really gonna put a bow on this thing before we get into our training. And I think this will make it crystal clear what we're doing here. So the first is chocolate. The second is cocaine. And the third one is sex. So what do all 3 of those have in common? Well, probably a lot of things. But really, when we talk about our biology and our psychology and how we're made up, they each hit the pleasure and reward center the same way with the same chemicals. Okay? Chocolate, cocaine, sexual activity. Right? Big impact on what we do, our behaviors, and that type of thing. But here's another question for you. Do you know what else has the same effect as those 3 things? Believe it or not, when people talk about themselves, especially to others, it has that same effect, that same impact. Now, I was reading a book recently that just really substantiated a lot of stuff I had already learned in the past. And that book was The Like Switch by Marvin Carlins and Jack Schafer. And in The Like Switch, it talks about an FBI agent. And it was that agent's job really to meet with foreign diplomats, spies from other country, and turn them into double agents, basically. And in order to do that, the first step was he had to make them like him, right? He'd also do some interrogating and things like that. And based on all the tactics he had learned, he had written the Like Switch, okay? And he goes in depth in this topic. And basically the way he puts it is when we feel good, without even thinking about it, we attribute that feeling to whoever we're with, right? So if you make somebody feel good, they're going to like you. And rapport builds rapidly. So for all you single people out there, if you want to go on a date and you want them to like you, you want to show them a really good time. And whether they like you or not, if they have a really good time, they're going to associate that good time with you. and kind of by default like you, build rapport with you, right? If you make someone feel good, they like you. Rapport builds rapidly. And when rapport builds rapidly, that's going to help with communication. And when communication is really working, right? Really flowing, people are opening up to us, we're able to ask questions and get answers. When that's working, it's kind of like mind reading. So this goes back to how we started this video. Wouldn't it be super cool if we could read our prospects' minds? Wouldn't it help more deals come to fruition? Well, with this communication strategy, what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to show you a very simple, very easy way to actually do that, okay? Again, we're going to use empathetic statements in response to anything our prospects say or ask. Now, this is going to fly by quick. I told you it's simple, it's easy, it's just a few slides. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep them talking and make them feel heard. Both of those things are essential to building rapport. The more rapport is built, the more they're going to open up, the more questions we can ask. So here's what I want you to do going forward. After you get asked questions, before you respond, I want you to first recognize that they asked you a question, okay? Say something like, hey, you know what? I'm glad you asked. And then you can fill it in. Or, hey, that's a really good question. And then fill in the blank. Or, hey, you know what? I was kind of waiting for you to ask me that. Or, oh, man, you know what? I was really hoping that would come up. I was hoping you'd ask me that. Anything first, just to make sure you are actively listening and your prospect knows they are being heard. That is going to build massive amounts of rapport. Now, after any other questions, or let's talk about statements. Let's move on to statements. After your prospect makes statements, I want you to kind of do the same thing, right? After they make statements, I want you to say something that's going to encourage them to expand on what they've said and also make them feel heard. So when your prospect tells you something, you're going to say something like, really? Well, what else? Wow. You might shake your head. You might nod. You might do something. Anything that says, hey, I'm listening, and then you just shut up and go silent. Now, the combination of the two is actually super powerful. It's going to show your prospect I'm actively engaged and listening. Rapport is building, right? They like you. They feel good. And then when you use one of those statements, one of those empathetic statements like, really, you're kidding me, and then you just go silent, that moment of silence is going to encourage them to expand on what they say, going even deeper. So that's how you build massive amounts of rapport by barely doing anything. Empathetic listening. Let your prospect know that you've heard them and encourage them to speak some more. Guys, that's it. I told you, this thing is super simple. All you do is when they talk, we build rapport. We do it by really just asking or acknowledging when they ask a question or acknowledging when they make a statement and encouraging them to talk even more. Because when more rapport is built, we can ask deeper questions. And when we ask deeper questions, our prospects will share more relevant information. So at the end of the day, essentially what we're doing is we're mind reading. So if you think this small tweak could help, I encourage you to put it to work, to use it where you can, just here and there, and see how your conversations change and whether or not you go a little bit deeper than you're used to. My name's John Martinez. This is the 21-day REI Sales Challenge. I'll see you tomorrow.